Hey everyone, it's Mike from Landscape Business Course, and today we are going to be having another one-on-one consulting call. Big thanks to Josh for putting these out on Thanksgiving weekend for all of us as you're at home, probably on a food hangover of all the food you've been eating at home on this cold, dreary Thanksgiving weekend. But big thank you to Josh for posting these up here. So this is another consulting call. Again, if you would like to get a consulting call, in the description below, you can book a 45-minute Zoom call with me. And occasionally, a couple of these I will be able to use publicly, and the owners are gracious enough to allow me to share this with all of you. So big thank you to Dean King today from Full Circle Landscaping. It's actually his second consulting call he's had with me, and you probably remember for a couple months ago, he was on here. He's the guy with the pink truck. Well, now he's painted the truck pink, and so great to see him implementing so many of the things we've talked about. He's actually started implementing P4P, pay for performance, and so I'm going to be able to include the whole talk besides just a little part of it that I want to keep special for our conference in January. So if you haven't already, make sure you sign up, landscapebusinesscourse.com/conference. And again, it's virtual, so you don't have to travel here. You don't have to get a hotel. But I really recommend you come live. We're going to do it via Zoom so we can see each other and do a lot of Q&A. And I really, really look forward to it. The content that I've been able to add even more so because of it being virtual, and there's just less distractions, less questions, and so I'm gonna make sure there's a lot of content. So I've added, I think now 3 keynotes that we weren't planning on before. Really looking forward to that. So without any further delay, let's go right into this call with Dean King. He did about $150,000 in revenue. I'm doing this off the top of my head. He did about $150,000 in revenue this year. He was planning to do about $350,000 next year in revenue. He's made some big changes to his business, and he wants to take it to the next level when it comes to marketing, organization, and pricing so that P4P works. Without any further delay, let's roll Dean King. Dean, what's up, brother?
Yo, what's going on? How are you?
Good. You embraced the pink.
I did, dude. I got the beanie, and I can show you a picture of it. I painted one of the trucks pink, went all in.
Oh, really? Oh, let's go.
Yeah, so the new, I got another F-150, a little 2-wheel drive, and painted it pink. So that's
good for you,
cool.
Man. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's good. How's everything been?
Good. We've been drowning here in the Pacific Northwest. It's raining, and we had the closure. So technically, the gym's supposed to be closed, but we kind of are flying on the radar right now.
Dude, it's so tough. Yeah, I don't have a good picture, but that's I guess it's kind of a hard picture to see. It's just rolling away. But yeah, it's getting lettered up on Friday. I'm gonna try out the reflective stuff. I don't know how that's gonna work, but getting lettered up, so that should be cool.
I would recommend, are you putting green on it?
Yeah.
I would recommend, if you can, do a black outline on your green lettering. Because if you don't, it won't stand off the pink enough. Yeah, we learned this the hard way with the yellow, but it'll be the same way with your pink.
Okay.
So if you can just do a thin outline of black on your green, people looking at it won't even tell that you have a black outline.
But whatever it is, yeah.
It'll make it pop off a lot better.
Dude, that's huge, because I would be so pissed if I got it and I was like, those letters look like mud.
You just can't see it. Like it just blends in too much, especially when you get like about 100 feet away. Whereas, especially with the way that you're doing the full circle, like the whole big, like what we do, it looks so much better. If you just do a little black outline on it, it looks so much better.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Thank you. So I have not as many specific questions. I think last time I had about 1,000 very pointed questions about all these different topics.
Yep.
So I had a couple of those, but then I really just wanted to talk about, like, I guess you can't see my hands, like marketing, which was like pretty huge, because just marketing, but the actual like straight up numbers behind like Facebook and Google, and then like Nextdoor that you guys kind of hit. And then how you document field procedures, I guess is what I wrote, but like, as in what my employees at least said, and this is what they really wanted me to ask you, is because now I have three full-time. So, but I'll show up to a job, like, and I record videos and stuff, but a lot of times I'll show up and be like, hey, why don't you try doing it this way? And they're like, dude, like we just beat budgeted hours because you told us how to do it. Mm-hmm. But like, and when we thought about it, we tried to think of the best way to do it, because they want to beat budgeted hours too, because they're on P4P now, but they can't think, like, are having trouble like coming up with the best way to do a job, where I just go there and I'm like, oh, obviously you do this. And they're like, well, how did you know that? And I'm like, I don't know. I just know it. So I don't know how to show that to them. And then last thing is when
they're on P4P?
Yeah, they're 100%, not 100% P4P, but they're on P4P the same way your guys are. So their base rate's 14 an hour. And this is something else to kind of touch on, and they're getting 28% of revenue. And we'll go over. I guess we can talk about that when we kind of hit that, because I had a couple other questions to ask you before we go to those bigger ones. But basically,
Okay.
just is it just so you know, is 28 good or should I raise it? But
Okay, we'll come
I
back
figured
to
it's
that
better to
part.
start low.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll come back on that one. So in terms of what was the first part of that question? Sorry, I had what was I gonna say?
The field stuff or the marketing?
Field stuff. There you go. So in terms of field stuff, two things. Number one, when they ask you those things, like, you know, what I should do, blah, 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 is that like around landscaping and hardscaping stuff, or is that just mowing in general, or what is it?
Mowing. So like mowing and our, like, I call them cookie cutters, but like because there's a lot of houses that are the same. Mowing and cookie cutter cleanups, they got those. They can just do them. It's easy.
Yeah.
But on any of the higher touch jobs, any of the ones that take like a full day, and I'll record a video about how I would do it, but it doesn't hit home until I actually show up and I'm like, hey, I showed them, like, here's where I go to this and do that. And they're like, oh, well, that just saved us an hour. Like, that was awesome. We were doing it this way and it was taking an extra 10 minutes every time and adds up.
Could you show that sort of thing on the video? Or is it something you don't really even think about?
I think I could show it better on the videos, but I'm just having trouble getting the videos out to them, but getting the videos, making a good system for it. Because some of them I send over, like, they're all on my phone, but I don't know how do you categorize them and then send them out? And I know you guys said something about WhatsApp, but what's the exact way you guys actually get the videos out so it's already there for the job? So when they just show up, they can just find it instead of getting there and texting me being like, hey, Dean, where's the video? I'm like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. I estimated a week ago and now I have to scroll through and find it. So
yeah, so what we do is when an estimator goes to a property, as soon as they take the video, they're uploading it to WhatsApp. Now, you could use YouTube, you could just put it in your phone, but the main thing is to categorize it by the name of the customer. So we just do first, last name, and then that goes into WhatsApp. And literally, if you made a WhatsApp group for yourself, you could do the same thing. Like, literally just call it estimates, call it a group, and then you're the only person in it. And that way they're all in there. And then when someone's going to a job the night before, they basically get the video and you can just search for the name of the customer. And so usually I say, like, your video, you would rather it be too long and too in detail than not, right? So even like explaining where they should park, where they should put equipment, where they should, like, and thinking the whole job through for them. Like, I've done videos back when I was doing estimate that were 10, 12 minutes long, but I didn't have to show up the job because I literally was like, okay, day 1, day 2, day 3, and walk them through, like, where they're going to park things, like everything, right? But obviously there's things that do come up, and that because of your experience, you will have those, you know, advantages. The main thing is that they're on P for P and they're actually wanting to figure those things out, because they should be trying to find those better ways online, right? Like YouTubing the type of material that they're installing, YouTubing the type of tree they're installing. But really, at the end of the day, the more you can simplify the services, the less that will happen, right? Like, the less they'll have to figure things out and the less they will have to ask you, is because you can simplify the number of services that you do and the type of materials that you install to the point where you can basically take a day and get someone up to speed with you very, very quickly in terms of training. What gets difficult is when they have, you know, you got to teach them drainage, then you got to teach them how to drive skid steers, then you got to teach, you know, trucks and dump trucks and excavators and patios. Whereas if you can just like reduce those things and simplify them, it's a lot easier. So for example, for us, when it comes to hardscaping, like you said, mowing is pretty simple. Property cleanups, they get most of that on the job in a sequential kind of manner. But when it comes to hardscaping, we install flagstone patios, we install one type of paver patio and one type of block, right? So literally in about half a day, they get taught that, and at least they have it down once. And then because that's the only thing that we do, they see it so much that they eventually very quickly become very efficient at it. And it's very easy for people who have been around for a little bit of time to teach the next person, right? So I think simplification of services is huge, and then your video detail is important too.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, the video detail is huge. I didn't even think to just make them longer. I'll just make them just make longer videos, because I mean the one guy who's with me has been with me since I started almost, but so he's kind of got it down. But then I have the one girl I hired basically after I talked to you last time, and then I hired another girl employee because I've had good luck with the girls, right?
The pink.
But and the pink. That might be part of it. I don't know yet.
We might start a pink company now.
Yeah, I got all the girl employees. Yeah, so Oh yeah, but the girl, one of the girls has only been with me for a couple weeks, maybe a month now, but she's all trained up and the simple services are amazing. Like we're not, I just, cause I used to do like, just accept estimates. I'm like, oh, it's just a little bit of dirt, we could just do it. But like, she just goes out and she just knows what to do every day. And that's awesome. So that's a great point of just even further, just being like, hey, like, we're not going to do these like like not the massive cleanups, but not these massive, super intricate cleanups. Like we're going to call in a tree guy to come cut down this limb. So I don't have to be there to cut down the stupid tree limb. Like,
yeah, like especially as you grow, it just compounds in magnitude the amount of issues that begin to pour on you if you don't simplify. So I do it now, especially when you're growing so much. It's not like by cutting out services or reducing the options that you do for landscaping. Like, you guys do patios and stuff like that, like walls? Will you?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay.
No, not well. So we're doing some this winter just because to fill in the schedule, but like, and just for fun for me because I always wanted to. But so I have two patios lined up for one where basically one's for my dad's construction company that I was like, hey dad, let me do a patio. And he was like, no. And then he was like, yes. And I was like, yeah. And then one's for my house. So I convinced my mom, which, so that's cool. But so yeah, that's an awesome tip for that. So thank you. And then can I ask you a couple of the basic questions I had that are like 2-second responses?
Yep.
One thing, thank you for telling me happy birthday. That was awesome that you remembered. So thank you for that. And then I was so mad the other day. Audible canceled Audible Business. You can't sign up as a new member.
Yep.
So what would you do? Like I want to give. I was really excited to give that to my people, but like, what do you do now?
Just make a personal account. So like name it for fullcircleteam@gmail.com. Make a personal account, buy all of them in there, and then just give the username and password to everyone. The only issue with that is if people are listening to the same book, they can mess each other up. But it does have a warning that pops up and says, like, do you want to skip to your next spot? They just have to click no, or else they'll mess up everyone listening to the book. But you could technically, if you have a big issue, you could say, hey, look, if you want a book, just like put it on the whiteboard, and that way we don't watch it, listen at the same time. But we have it for all our guys, and it's rarely an issue. Okay,
awesome. That's way easier than what I was going to.
Legal. Technically, probably not legal, but it works.
It works. I'm paying for the book still. It's whatever. It works. So here's a question that's kind of huge for me right now, which I'm having trouble with. Is like, which is weird for me, I think, but I'm having trouble sending estimates that are high dollar figures because I'm not confident in my hourly rate. Because so I'm charging, just so you know, I'm charging right now like $75 an hour for the cookie cutter cleanups, and then $60 an hour for our everyday run, like for our bigger cleanups, the ones that take like that we're going to be there for at least a half a day, are getting like anywhere between 60 and 65 an hour. I'll just usually make them just estimate higher so the guys make more because the bigger ones kind of suck to do. But so I'm just having trouble with that. And how do you find your hourly rate? Like, how do you know that it's good? Because I had one of my buddies who like I just became friends with, who does a lot of work in like the same areas I do. He was just kind of giving me some coaching, and he was like, oh yeah. So you're new, and I'm charging like 45 an hour right now. And it took me a while to get there. So you should be like 30. And I'm like, bro, I'm at 60. Like, and I'm getting work. Like I had to hire another person because I'm so booked out. Like, so what do you do with that?
Well, first of all, in terms of staying busy, as long as you're staying really busy, that you know that you're not charging too much, right? So I've always found that booking yourself out breeds confidence, right? So like if you book yourself out 4 weeks, like, okay, I know I have work, let's raise my prices, right? Now the opposite happens, and that is when you start losing work or you don't have as much work, that's when you start second guessing yourself. And that's why a lot of people second guess themselves in the winter, is you're like, oh man, like I only have a couple of days worth of work, and it's like I should lower my prices. Like maybe for the winter, but like that does not mean you're overpriced. It just means that you're slowing down a bit, right? So but definitely if you're booking out, that's when, keep raising your prices, right? That's just going to mean that you're going to inhibit growth, right? Like if you kept your prices the same, all other things created equal are going to be, you're going to, have a higher close ratio, right?
Yeah.
So I would look at it though, from a perspective, because you have P for P, it's very easy to know this. And that is at 28% revenue, what are your guys making per hour? Like actually making?
So I give them a bunch extra for cleanups, but actually if it was just up to them making money, they would, like if you ran it by day, because by pay period, they make 14 every pay period, right? Which I can tell you why, but basically if you run it by day, the days that they actually make P for P, they're making about 16 an hour. But the
Okay.
problem is that, and this is another issue that's just, you can't help me with this, but it's something I have to work on. It's just estimating. I thought I was a great estimator until I started giving my guys P for P. And then the one job in 2 weeks that I mess up, they're not mad at me, but they're like, yeah, this job just sucks. And then they're like, not being like to my face, like you stink, but they're being like, yeah, it just stinks so bad that this job ruined my P for P. I'm like, but
Yeah.
so that just happens. Like today was the one job, and there was one probably 2 weeks ago, but that it was pine needles, which I don't even know what to do for those, but pine needles, and it took them double the amount of time, and they're not even done yet, so they'll probably have another 2 hours tomorrow. And then that's when I just manually go in and give it to them, because I'm like, that's on me, that's not on you. But
yeah. So two things. We'll come back to the P for P thing, but in terms of strictly a number standpoint, like a very much of a rule of thumb, like it's not, in concrete, is the fact that if you multiply your base rate by 4, you need to be above that in your rate to the customer, right? So $14 per hour, you need to be at least 56, right? So I'm confident that you're charging enough. And I don't think you're way overpriced or anything like that. Do you charge an estimate fee?
Not yet.
Okay, that's fine. That's the reason though why you're charging $75 per hour on those cleanups, is because basically you're baking into the fact that like just the time of being there and all the rest of it, right? So down the road, if you ever wanted to standardize it, that's how you kind of take out those small cleanups and little like 2-hour things, is by having an estimate fee. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And the only reason that's important is because, again, for P for the employees to understand, the more simple that is, the better. And if there's just one rate, it just makes a lot more sense for them.
Okay, yeah, for like an estimator down the road kind of thing.
I mean, just even for P. I mean,
for P for P, so they're not getting 75 on some and 60 on others. You want to make it standard. Okay.
Keep it all possible, right? Like, so we do 2 split, like you just mentioned, but we do one for lawn care, one for landscaping. Very, very simple. Like if you're not mowing, you're making this, right? And so that it's a little more simple, whereas it's like just the size of the job or what you determine, it makes it a little bit more difficult for them. In terms of P for P, explain to me why they're hitting 14 and then you add in money and manually. What's going on there?
Oh man, so what's going on there is basically that wasted time on my end, as in like not me not being ready, because I'm pretty as far as like getting stuff out into them. Either me over talking at meetings, which I fixed this probably last week. I was talking to them for an hour. I'm like, this is awesome. They're talking back. They're like, we're going, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh wait, that wasn't. Oh, and they're a P for P. So then they were like, they weren't mad at me because they didn't get it at that. Then once they kind of started to pick up on it, they're like, all right, dude, like I want to like let's go. But so there's that, right? But the biggest reason I think they're hitting 14 is just my estimating. That's what it comes down to, and that's kind of why I'm hesitant about my price sometimes, because you're like, oh, did I only get this job because I messed up my estimating? And then you have 9 others that accepted it, but so I think it's just the confidence, and so I think we're fine as far as pricing. But I guess what it just comes down to is me messing up the estimating, and then them they hit like, and that's why I'm kind of thinking about raising the percentage up, because they're hitting like anytime, even on the bad weeks, they're hitting like 13.8, between like 13.8 and like 14.2 but on the bad weeks. So like, that's why I'm thinking about raising it. But my concern, and the reason why because I was going to make it the same as you, just because I figured I might as well just copy everything you do instead of just almost all of it. But I was like, all right, well, I could raise it, but then I have bigger equipment to pay for. So my justification without running a lot of numbers was, if I have to pay for a zero turn, like I guess it's a lot more money to take out of it. Like you're only paying for push mowers, and I have to buy zero turns and all the other bigger equipment, that it's a lot bigger of an expenditure. So I don't want to overdo my P for P and not have enough money to buy the zero turns and stuff.
Okay, I got what you're saying. Okay, so
you know what I'm saying? Just a higher expense for the business, and I don't want the business to like. I never wanted to go down, so I figured I'd start low and work my way up, because then I feel like if you go down, it's bad.
What do you charge per hour for mowing?
75.
Got it. So at the end of the day, you got to remember that P for P is a function of time, right? So if you're going to give them bigger equipment, they should be getting less time on the job, right? So what that's going to basically equate to, if you wanted to fix that right away, is by raising that dollar per hour target, saying, hey, look, instead of 75, I expect to be done, sooner, because now I'm charging 80 per hour. I didn't change the customer's price. Let's say I'm charging $40 for a mow, right? At $75 per hour, that's going to give them like 33 minutes to mow the lawn, for example, right? Well, now I expect it done in 30 because I'm getting this bigger piece of equipment. And so that's why I would say, like, I think you could do 33%.
I think so too.
The bottom line is this: you don't actually see the benefits of P4P until two things happen. Number one, they're above P4P, like they're above base pay, and two, you do not meddle with that number ever.
Okay.
Like, it is, if you're gonna play a P4P, that number can't be touched.
Okay.
Like,
So I was taking a little bit of when you're like, yeah, you can do a manual adjustment occasionally if this tiny thing happens, and I was like, manual adjustments for everybody. So okay.
We've done a manual adjustment one time since converting to P4P, just one time.
Okay.
So, and that includes every single job, and that means that they've got to take some of the good and the bad. But we give them the 33% to make up for the bad. But you'll get better and better at the estimating process. You've already gotten better in terms of second guessing yourself, like, oh, well, actually, let me give them an extra hour for this, right? So I would highly recommend, like, give them 33%, but say, hey, look, if you're over a job, that stinks for you, but there's gonna be opportunity for you to kill it, right?
Okay.
And just be like, look, we've got to stick to the system as we grow. We want each other to be efficient. I want you to be able to make more money. I hate that you're making $14 an hour, and so I'm going to be raising this. Effectively, you're raising this 20% for them, right? Their wages are going up 20%, right? So I would really, really recommend doing that, because until they're above base pay, I guarantee you their efficiency will go up from when you do that, because they're actually now in performance dollars. You want them in performance dollars. If they're not, if they're hitting base, I can guarantee you P4P does nothing for you. Okay. And then what happens, it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're like, oh no, I did a bad estimating job, when in reality, they just didn't work as hard as they could have, because they knew they were going to hit base pay no matter what.
Okay, that's huge. So never meddle with it. Okay, yeah.
When you raise it to 33% and they actually start making $15, $16 per hour, they will increase their productivity dramatically.
Okay, and when they know it's all them and that I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, even if whatever. So, okay.
Yeah, because awesome. Right now you're protecting way too much downside, but you're not giving them enough upside, right?
Yeah.
You're basically hedging the P4P thing by basically saying, look, I'm going to give you a decent wage, and then if you mess up, I'll make sure I give you a little bit more. But then, like, I'm not going to give you 33% because I don't want you to make like $20 an hour, right? So you're putting too much restriction on both ends, on the bottom end and the top. Let them go down if it's a bad job, but then give them the 33% to make a lot more. And how you win them over on that, like, look, I'm going to be going from 28 to 33. I'm confident in this P4P thing. No longer am I going to adjust things, unless it's like, I'm talking like crazy, like an 80-hour job was supposed to be 25. But regardless, we're going to stick to this because I want you to be able to make more money, and I don't want you hitting base pay. If more than half the time to hit base pay, you're not going to get the efficiencies of P4P, because they start just being like, look, it's a 50-50 shot. If I make good money, I'm not going to work any harder. When it starts hitting 70, 80, 90% though of the time they're hitting above base pay, that's when you change the culture. Because now it's just accept that you need to be doing this all the time. Even if they know they're going to hit base pay, the culture will push them in the direction of staying efficient.
Okay, that's huge. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Just do the 33% and do not touch
I'm gonna set it. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm not gonna touch it anymore. And then, so do you think for next year, should I raise my base pay at all to get more people in the door, or no? Because I've been doing, like, before I hired the person, I hired another person like a week ago. I guess like this past week, they started yesterday. So, but I had some, like, to try and explain P4P, I'm like, well, how much do you get paid an hour? I'm like, well, you get paid as someone who's been the same as someone who's been here 5 years. I mean, not that we have someone who's been here 5 years, but like kind of backtracking myself and then being like, so it's 14. And people are like, 14? I'm worth 18. Click. I'm like, but so should I raise it to 16 or no?
So what's the average going rate for a landscaping company in your area?
12.
Yeah, so at 14, you're fine, right? So just be competitive with your base pay, but don't go into the explanation like what are you worth? Like, what did you make before? Whatever. Don't go into that garbage.
That's good for that. And then here's another question that's kind of super subjective, but I thought was kind of important is, do I rent space now? Because everything's based out of my house and basically my garage. And we have a giant space here in my garage. And that's where we do team meetings, and everything's just parked on the side of my house. I live on a corner. It's like the side that faces away from the front, but it's all there. And we don't go in and like, I don't eat in front of them and stuff like that, but it's still there. And So I have 2 trucks now. I think I definitely have to when I get a third truck, but do I move somewhere or do I save the overhead? For me to go somewhere, it's around $300 a month for 2 trucks and 2 trailers, probably 450 or 400, something like that for 3 trucks and 3 trailers.
And when you say that those dollar amounts, is that at a storage facility?
No, the storage facility was ungodly amounts of money because it's a nice area around here. But that was just at there's a paving company down the street that just bought a whole giant property, and I called them and I was like, hey, I'm a teenager, can I rent space? And they were like, yeah, let me call you back. And then there was another one that was from a different like just real estate company that has space. So
What do you think, like 2020, what's the revenue going to be? Like just
this
guessing?
year,
Yeah.
probably 150.
Okay. And then next year, based upon, I know the last couple months growing a lot, you think what, like 300?
Yeah, the goal is to get like 350. That's what I'm shooting for. So try and get 3 trucks. Try and have at least 3 trucks on the road every day.
Yeah, like do you need to do dumping at all or not?
A lot of dumping. So I dump everywhere. So where I dump around here, there's just a place down the street, and it's $20 for a dump trailer or for a truck bed. So they charge $20 a load for everything, and that's just baked into the cost of the customer.
You probably spend $600 to $700 a month on dumping.
In spring, yeah.
Is there more rural areas where you think you can get like a farm?
Yeah. They're right like north of me. They're probably 15 minutes. That's where a lot of landscaping companies are based, and there's farmland out there.
Like if you could somehow get some land from a farmer or from someone that's living out on land, and I'd give them $500 or $600 a month if I could dump there, and they just burn it, right? Like it's very important that they be the one that has to manage the debris. But I'm okay with that. And even if you had to do the local thing, that's fine. But honestly, if you're going to combine $400 a month plus say $600 a month for debris, you're looking at $1,000, right? So if you can somehow get that at 500-600 even for the ability to dump debris, that's really valuable, right? And honestly, when you go out to those cheaper spots, literally, I really believe for 300 or 400, you get a spot where someone's willing to burn, right? So I would put a thing up on Craigslist on the gigs and just try to go after that if you can. 15 minutes is a bit of a drive.
Well, that's the problem, right? Like you can call it. I could probably find maybe even 10, but still you're looking at 10 to 15. And that was my holdback, is like, is it worth having somewhere I can't dump, but just park them that's closer to our service area? Because that's a half hour every day and just burning time.
It's the efficiency, though, of having dumping on site instead of having to go to the dump every day, right?
Okay.
Like by the time you weigh, you wait, you dump it all out. Whereas at your shop, you literally back up, dump it, and then you park your truck, right?
Okay.
And a lot of times that's a lot of the inefficiencies, especially on hourly, but even on P4P for your crew, is going to the dump, right?
Oh, it's huge.
It's a tough sell for them too. Is like, hey, by the way, you gotta go to the dump, and you're not getting paid extra, really, right? So, obviously, it's part of P4P that you can calibrate that. However, there's a lot of value we've seen to having dumping on site if you can. And even if you do have to drive 5-10 more minutes one way, I would still round that out, because like the dump, when it closes, certain things you have to separate the dump, what goes here, what goes there, waiting for people to dump when it's really busy in the spring, like all of that adds up. So that's, in my opinion.
Okay. That's a great perspective. I didn't think of it from that angle. So that's awesome. Thank you. That's huge. I'm definitely looking at that then. And then, okay. So snow. How do you structure? I know I've basically watched every video I think that's actually useful on YouTube about it, and just read some stuff online. But how do you structure snow with I know you pay them hourly for snow, but so how do you structure that, and how would you structure contracts versus whatever? And then how did you price it when you were first learning?
Yeah, so still do it based upon kind of a budgeted hour. The problem is it depends on the depth of the snow, right? So for example, we do not have where we get like 3 feet of snow. Not happening here, right? So we can usually give a per push price or per service price and be very, very accurate. Whereas like I just got off the phone with one of our franchisees in South Dakota, and he's like, yeah, it could literally snow 4 feet here tomorrow. And so for him, he gave, like, based upon kind of budget hours and their rate for snow plowing, which is going to obviously be more than like pulling weeds, that number times whatever hours, whatever. But then he has a disclaimer that says, if the snow is above 18 inches, then it's going to be 2x this price, right? Just to keep it simple. So that way, if 4 feet drops, he's going to at least get twice as much for that property, right? So we don't do a ton of snow. Obviously, like you said, we don't do P4P for it because we don't want people to go fast. And we just realize like our margin on that is going to be really good if they do a good job, but we're willing to take some inefficiencies for them to take their time and slow down. So that's kind of where we're at on it. But basically, it's still going by budget hours times a multiple of an hourly rate, and then having some sort of buffer in there in terms of the depth of the snow.
Okay. Easy. Awesome. How do you guys organize your registration? That's another kind of simpler question, but how do you organize your trailer versus your truck and keep them so that they're matched up for the DOT and stuff like that?
So we don't. All our trailers and trucks get moved around and mixed up. So what we do is we have a binder in each truck that has all of the registrations for each trailer.
That works. Simple. Awesome. All right. Can we spend the rest of the time just talking about marketing? Because that's, I mean, after you kind of what you said last time, like it's a marketing game, I kind of went into that and I was like, you know what, he's right. Like I'm literally just trying to get customers and get people. So since then I've done some Facebook, which the Facebook ads manager, I don't like it that much. It's kind of a pain for me to use, but I might just be doing it wrong. I might just got to practice more. But in Google, Nextdoor, and then just started doing email marketing. Mm-hmm. So what I don't know, just what are your thoughts on that?
So first of all, Facebook ads manager, if you're not in it every day, is very confusing. In terms of going to their kind of pro side, go through your Facebook page to make ads. So go to Ad Center up above. It's much more intuitive. Whereas if you go to business.facebook.com, that's like a very much in-depth, very complicated system.
Yeah.
Same thing goes for Google Ads, right? Like Google Ads has an ads.google.com, wherever.
Yeah, the
very
ads
complicated backend. Versus if you go through your Google My Business page and place an ad going through Express, it's much more simple.
Yeah. Okay. So just run them all that way. And then how do you measure your, I know you expect to get the 10 to 20 multiple, but how do you, like for right now, especially like when it's not peak season, like what do you expect for that? Just because it's not peak season for cleanups, but I'm still trying to get at least, like my goal is to do like this week and then one more full week of cleanups and then switch into more winter services and all the dirt work we have and stuff like that.
Yeah, so a couple things, it depends on, what you're tracking, right? If you're tracking clicks, if you're tracking calls, if you're tracking leads, et cetera, right? So obviously the best metric is going to be cost per lead, right? Like what does it actually cost for me to get someone to ask for an estimate and actually get that estimate to them, right? So that's why Google Local Services is so great. That's why even on Google Ads, if your target is for them to call you, you will see how many calls and you will see how long those calls were. So you can basically determine if they were actual leads, like if you actually get a job from it, right? That's why I'm not a huge fan of just random clicks to your website, because it's just harder to track them. They're also way cheaper, right? You might pay $1, $2 per click, or even less on a Facebook ad, a lot less on a Facebook ad, but you're just going to click, right? So then there's another funnel of drop off that's going to actually convert to a lead. So in terms of numbers I'm looking for, if it's over $6 per click on Google, I'm not a fan, right? I want under 6. Like 5 is really like where I want to be at, that or below. Facebook, if I'm paying for where they fill out a lead form, I want that under $50. If I'm paying for a call, I want that under $5 on Facebook, because they're not great. They're not like, a call on Facebook is not as good as a call from Google. Yeah. So yeah, those are just kind of round numbers, I guess.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, those are good ones. And when do you know that your ad is bad compared to the prices? Like, and I know like, sure, I've read Dan Kennedy and all the be your favorite sales marketing person, but like, how do you know when your actual ad copy is bad? Do you just run A/B testing or?
Couple things. First of all, I'm looking at performance over time. So Google is a lot more, what's the word? Longevity. I don't know. The longevity of your copy on Google is a lot better because people are looking for you. And then it's a matter of whether or not you're good or bad in terms of whether or not they click, right? In terms of your copy. Whereas with Facebook, your copy starts getting seen 3, 4, 5 times. You either change it or it's just, you can see if it does well and then it starts to drop off. So I'm really looking at performance over time. I'm looking at, for example, if I'm tracking clicks, if I get 10 clicks the first day, 7 clicks the next day, 3 clicks the next day, 2 clicks the next day, 1 click, and I'm still paying $20 a day, we've got a problem, right?
Okay.
Whereas if it goes 10, 11, 12, 14, 19, 16, 13, 18, and I'm starting to perform like that, that's when I'm like, okay, great. Here we go. This is a good ad. I'm looking more at like tracking against performance as well as impressions, because Google and Facebook will not show a pathetic ad. So if the impressions are going down, usually clicks will follow, but impressions is really the thing that like Google and Facebook are watching to see if people are like actually paying attention here. And if they're bringing down how many times they show your ad, it's a good indication that people are not interacting with it. It's not getting clicks, because they, at the end of the day, if you're paying them to get clicks, they're trying to put the best ad in front of people to get the most clicks, because that's when they get paid. They don't get paid for impressions unless you're specifically trying to target that. So like, my thing is like looking at, is Facebook putting this in front of more people? Is my cost per click going down? Is it going up? Those are all things I'm kind of looking at.
Okay, just analyzing the metrics over time.
Yep.
Okay, and then that's just getting better at it over time too. Like I'm not going to be a genius at it yet.
And changing it, right? So like a great ad on Facebook will do good today, but if I don't change it in a week, it's going to do a lot worse because the people have seen it 5 times now, right? So just changing your creative in terms of the picture and the text, and that alone will be enough to rejuvenate it and it'll start doing good again, right? So,
okay,
yeah.
Awesome. I really didn't think you could make that short. That's awesome. Thank you.
Have you done Nextdoor?
Yeah, I did Nextdoor. Did you join their thing where it's like pay this much a month to get your stuff in front of people?
Yeah, I'll talk about it.
I have that. I paid for it. Is it worth it? No. It did. I haven't seen anything from it. I've gotten more from the local deals, which cost like $4 than the $100 a month sponsorship.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and then as far as local deals, do you see a lot of lead generation from those? Because I've been running them, and I guess I don't want to give discounts because I don't want to get people addicted to discounts at all. But I guess people don't really care that much about 24-hour estimates. It's more of when I give them the estimate in 24 hours, they use me, but they don't care about that up front. That's what, like, so what do you say on those to get them to click and then get the 24-hour estimate where then they're like, oh, that was quick, I'll buy it.
So yeah, because of local deals, you got to have an offer. Our offer is always just a free property analysis or a free estimate, right? So that's the giveaway that we're doing, right? Because they want it to be a percentage off or a deal of some sort. So ours is a free, property analysis or free inspection or property report or whatever it might be, in terms of the local deal itself.
Okay, so just go with that, and it is what it is as far as that kind of goes.
Yeah, in terms of cost per click on those, like anything under $2 is really good. And my big thing is that none of your competitors are probably marketing in that space. And honestly, usually in each market, I'm seeing only a couple of businesses in general marketing in that space. So it's pretty, wide open right now. And I think in a year or so, it'll probably be a little more crowded. Just a small businesses figure it out. So I think it's kind of a blue ocean for now. But
I love Nextdoor though. It's awesome. Yeah. Every customer I've seen on there, I'm like, post something on there, because every time they do, I get 4 website things. If I'm like, hey, just link the website, I get 4 of them the next day. That's freaking awesome. Like,
that's awesome.
So, yeah. So here's kind of the last question, I guess, because we have a couple minutes left. Is I didn't sell the diesel F250 for there's 2 reasons why. 2 main reasons why. Is one, in 2 to 3 years, I want to start a construction company. Like that's kind of long-term goal is. I mean, my dad did a specific kind of niche thing, not to get into it, but I want to start like an excavation company, like digging, I don't know, say everything from homes to like apartment complexes. So I kept it kind of thinking about that. But then lately I've been kind of like, well, I can just buy a new one then down the road. But the biggest thing is I've had such terrible luck buying trucks. Like the truck, when I sold my other truck, I didn't do that well selling it because for whatever reason. And then the new truck I just got, I had it pre-purchased and inspected. The guy said it was good. I brought it back to my home mechanic and he was like, all right, you should sit down before I read you the list of what's wrong with this one. And I was like, oh God. So, it went from being a $7,000 truck and I was like, oh, Mike's was $7,000. I'm doing good, to being an $11,000 truck. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing good anymore. This is bad. It's a 2-wheel drive 150. It's not worth that.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? You think it's worth it to sell it and try and buy 2 or?
This is the thing is like, I know that diesel over time is going to cost a lot in maintenance, right? That's my thing. You've heard that before, but I'm the worst at mechanics. I've never changed an oil.
I'm clueless. Like honestly,
I'm pretty bad too. Yeah.
just changing the windshield fluid is like rocket science for me. So like I can code an app, but I cannot change my windshield washer fluid. Like I'm pretty bad. So when it comes to like buying trucks, full disclosure, until recently, I don't have people inspect. I never had people inspect. It's like I
So what'd
lucked
you
out
do?
probably. I probably got really lucky.
Okay. Okay.
But I lucked out like 15 or 20 times. But honestly, like my big thing is like if I'm paying a low enough price for me to be able to say, okay, if the engine or the transmission goes out on this thing and I switch it out, I'll be still happy with this deal. That's when I buy, because I know that if there's like a loose gasket or there's like a spring that's missing on an unleaded vehicle that is very standard, like a Ford or a GMC or whatever, that those are things that are usually cheap. It's the big things that cost me, right? It's the engine and the transmission. Whereas on a diesel truck, I don't even have to touch the engine and the transmission. I can still spend 20 grand. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's why I lean towards the unleaded, probably, in full disclosure, because I'm not good at mechanics to be able to look at a diesel and be like, oh, that's going to cost me 10 grand.
Yeah.
Whereas usually I'm like, okay, does it run decently on the engine? Does the transmission seem pretty decent when I press it really hard? And like, if those things check out and I can get 5 years before either of those things blow, then I'm good. Right.
That's awesome.
So my analysis on trucks is pretty pathetic. Now,
right.
If I was going to get a truck, I might have a mechanic with me, but I don't know. I'm going for cheap. So like, I know that I'm going to get a lemon occasionally, right? So we did get one truck that wasn't great. We ended up having to put a few $1,000s into it right off the bat because of the electrical issues. But I got it for $3,200. So like, I'm not going to complain.
Oh man, that's awesome. So just wait for the right deal. I was kind of in a rush to buy it because I needed the truck, but I guess if you're not in a rush, you just kind of hang out and.
Yeah, and right now, like the used phone, the used phone. Sorry, I was grabbing my phone. The used car market is very hot, right? So the deals are few and far between. We had to pay significantly more this year when we bought 3 more trucks compared to usual, and actually had to go to a dealership for one because we needed a truck. So being in a spot to need a truck tomorrow is never a good spot because you end up paying like double sometimes. Especially when we were growing a lot last, a couple years ago, is like I was just always looking if there's a really cheap deal that I was like, that's worth $4 grand more, I'm buying it right now, right? So
okay. And how did you manage your cash? Sorry for going over a little bit, but how do you manage it? Like I feel like a plane that's like skipping on the water sometimes before I can, like, as far as cash goes, like I'm just low on cash because I'm reinvesting I'm not spending any on me. It's all in it, just buying stuff for the company.
Yep. Give me 1 second here.
You're good. Oh, you're good.
Do you see the chat box?
Yeah.
If you call this number that I'm about to text you, I can be on the phone for 10 more minutes, but I got to drive somewhere and be there in 10 minutes. So if you call that, though, I'll stay on the phone with you.
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll see you in a bit.